order. First up is deer hunting. I guess that would be Steve or Jeff.
Go ahead.
Brenda did a great job on the map.
Thank
I heard
you.
it was a pain in the butt.
It was. Thank you.
It's not like putting your finger and drawing the lines.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
I looked at it. I everything's there that we had discussed, and yeah, I'm good with it. I think we can roll with it and then make amendments and changes as we need down the road, like we have up till this point. So.
I agree. Thank you guys for doing that. I think it's important that real deer hunters looked at that and gone through this. Feel confident that we have a policy that's a good policy for the city.
I've had 3 ask already. So.
Is there anyone else that'd like to make any comments on this?
Yeah.
I'm not a real deer hunter, so
Well, you can still thank the guys for doing a good job of putting this together.
thank you.
And Brenda for putting the map
That's
together.
good evidence of seeing.
I can educate you a little bit if you need.
I'll keep that
It's
in mind.
been haven't missed an opening day since I was 13 years old.
So that can move on to the,
Yeah,
That,
I would-
we'll do that during the next meeting, but I do have a question about it, and I was gonna
please.
just get some hunters' viewpoints on the lottery that's built into the ordinance. Going forward, it will be easy because it's set to be the second Monday in September, but seeing as this won't officially be adopted until October 1st, because we have to publish it and then 10 days after, I kind of want to get a feel for how we should go about the lottery, how long we should give hunters, a chance, because I plan on posting this, if it's approved, on the website as soon as possible, and then give hunters time to turn in applications. So I kind of want to get a sense that even though it won't be officially adopted, I would like to.
Yeah, this year I don't see why we would need to limit, just if somebody turns one in December and we don't have anybody that's
Yeah, we would just
left,
go
then
ahead,
we just
right.
keep doing it, but, yeah, I don't think there's gonna be an issue once you get it out there that,
Okay.
I think the guys, like I said, that I had 3 so far that have asked me that, hey, when's this coming,
I've had a couple of phone calls.
And it's like, yeah, it's on the way.
Word's getting out.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
which is good, that's what I wanna see, so.
So how is that lottery gonna work? Someone comes and fills out some paperwork?
Yes,
and says,
I
"I'd like
have
an
it.
opportunity"?
Yes, the application will be exactly the same as the first one, except for the addition of city property. So there'll be a city property that they'll have to identify that they want to hunt on, and then they'll go into the drawing. So that's what I mean, I need to set a date where I'll have this lottery, so at that point I'll have all the applications for those that want to hunt on city property. Picking, let's say it's whatever.
Do we wanna
piece of
pick, are
property.
you gonna put numbers on them?
Yeah, I think I will.
I think that'd be easier, I wanna hunt number 3.
Right,
and you-
or
and
it
you go
will
in
be
the
by
lottery for
name.
3. Yeah.
But on the maps, because each one, DPW property, Funnelfield property, Peterson and Lewis property.
Yep.
So I think I'd like them to use those descriptors.
Yeah.
And then all those that have picked the DPW property, those will go in a
Throw in
little
a
lottery,
basket.
and and I'll pick a number based on their application. I'll just number their applications and then whatever number I draw, and then go in sequence like that. So, I mean, in the beginning, you're right, this first year we might not have a ton of them, but they can be added as people toss in their application. So that's
So
the plan.
the first one would go for 2 weeks,
Yes,
and then the second
for the next 2 weeks.
pick would get the next 2 weeks.
Right, and that would be set on their permit, so the permit has on the bottom their time period, and with instructions that they carry that permit with them. So they'll know when their time frame is up, the next one will know when they can start.
And there's not saying they can't put in for it again, I mean,
Correct, if there aren't that many.
we haven't limited it, so.
Right.
If somebody gets 2 draws in a row, they're gonna put them on, so.
Yeah, if I don't have enough of that property to make it through that, I'll just keep cycling through the hunters that are interested in that property.
Okay.
It'll just be a planning, I'll have to get a deer hunting calendar so I can keep track of everybody and let people know when it's,
I'd have to get another calendar on
Yeah, you
So-
need one more.
So if somebody gets the first 2 weeks on a certain piece, and there's only 3 people on there, then the number 1 pick would come back up.
Yeah, I
on the
just
4th.
cycle them back around.
You wouldn't have to put in another.
No,
application.
I would probably not make them do that. I'd just contact them and ask them if they're interested in going another round
Okay,
and just keep going until we get through hunting season.
so your $10 is good for the whole season?
I think
Well,
that's
pretty
fair.
much unlimited,
That
those
makes
bill
sense.
permits are over the counter now, and they're pretty much unlimited, aren't they? If I remember right,
Yeah,
Steve,
you can
right?
buy
How many
you
many
want.
you want now. Used to have to
Depends how
fight
many
for.
freezers you got.
Yeah. Or how much you can give away.
Yeah, that's right.
But that seems like a reasonable process, that is what.
Yeah,
my plan.
yep, that sounds good.
You're good with that. Everybody's good with this, okay? Well, let's move on to short-term rental. I looked at it and I think there's a lot of good stuff in all of them. I'd like us to maybe individually pick out the pieces and parts that we'd like to see for our regulations, and then see what we can do to put them all together. Anybody else have thoughts?
No, I had no sense recreating a wheel. Yeah, I mean, like you said, just pick out the best parts and the ones we like, and we'll make our own, but, yeah.
I see Holland doesn't have an amount they charge for, at least I couldn't find it in there,
Yeah, not all of them do that.
so they don't charge anything then. Apparently.
Right, yeah, they don't have, like, some of them, there's an application fee or an annual fee, and
Registration.
Yeah.
yeah.
call them different things.
But Holland has nothing.
I believe that's the case.
So,
I think there's some great things in here. I like the one in particular where they prohibit fireworks, because I can see where that would really irritate the neighbors in some cases. There's a lot of
Yeah.
there are a lot of good ideas in here, and I think, like Steve was saying, that we could put a number of these and we can come up with something really good.
I really like the one out of Sutton's Bay that has a neighbor notification that they'll provide the local contacts number to all neighbors within 300 feet. So if you're living within 300 feet of a rental and there's too much disturbance going on, you have a local number you can call and say, hey, your renters are disturbing. I think that's important to have that, and it's important to have a local contact person, that they also have that.
Yep.
And a number of them have that.
Sutton's Bay has a bunch of good ones.
Yeah.
Is there, can we have already, done some, requirements, I don't know if we have any ordinances, but requirements around residential rentals with inspections and registration and that kind of thing. I would like to see that same kind of thing for the short terms. I don't think that we had that in place. I don't think we required them, any of them, to
No.
be registered with the city. And inspections, I think, could be,
Oh, yeah, that definitely needs to be in there.
in my experience, most of the short-term rental owners are pretty buttoned up as far as that goes. You guys know I sit on the accommodations tax advisory committee, and I've talked with several of the folks on there, just around some of the stats, and the most recent one I heard in Muskegon is that 90% of the short-term rental properties that were inspected passed on their first inspection. That's much higher than the residential rental inspections. So, I mean, that's a good stat. So with respect to the fees that are paid, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to charge a lot more for a short-term rental property owner than it would for a residential property owner. Because they're focusing on the things that are going to make their property rentable.
They get a lot of feedback on their short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly think it's a good idea to discuss where we want to allow. I mean, we can do that by zone. A lot of communities do that by zoning. We should talk about that at some point. I noticed that some of them, they require a inspection yearly, whereas ours now is, I think, every 3 years, which I think is a little long. I think a lot can go wrong in 3 years. I it's certainly more important for short-term rental than it is long-term rental, but I think 3 years is too long.
I may have missed this, but I know that in my mind, I wanna balance the rights of people to make some extra money if they, are traveling down and, if they're, going snowbirds or something like that, and you wanna get somebody in there. And also people to make money. On the other hand, I also don't wanna take too many permanent residences out of the option for people to buy them, and so I'm still a little concerned about that. I want to see people who can come here and be full time if possible. Maybe just go to South a month. No, that was a joke. But I know that if people are coming here to move and there's a lot of houses that are just simply not available to them because they're in some type of, a variety of rental statuses. I'm not sure how we balance that.
I'd love to see some sort of limit put on
Yeah, Sutton's,
short-term rental.
yeah, Sutton's Bay has a 150 limit.
Yeah, a lot of
What is
places
it?
have limits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sutton's Bay has a 150 limit.
150.
Which is-
I hate the
150
thought of
days.
150
Yeah, I mean, we can do
Oh, 150 properties.
STR, yeah.
That's,
But they're bigger than we are,
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Can we clarify short-term rental means like
less than 30 days.
Airbnb or
30
Anything
days
less than
under.
30 days.
anything less than 30 days?
Well, and I know Grand Haven, period of less than 1 month, more than 3 times per year. So some of them seem to have that definition that, I don't know, and then some of the others look like you can have them, investor owned, for example, in Holland. Are we gonna make that distinction? Some of them are, here it says owner occupied, and this one says investor owned. They rent the entire home to visitors, which I'm not real crazy about that option.
That's why I like the idea of each one of us submitting these are the items that I would like to see on ours, and then we'll work together from that and see if we can't come up with something we can all agree on.
But can we at least have a round robin on what are our goals with this? What are we
What's important?
focused?
What problem are we solving? I think is a good question to ask.
For
I
all
think we
of
all
us.
have our ideas of what
Yeah,
that might be. What are we trying to fix? What are the issues that we're seeing? What are we trying to fix with putting something like this in? And how does it relate to what we're already doing as far as our noise ordinances and our, the trash and parties and fireworks? I mean, we already have some pretty tight control over our fireworks situation. I think they're, so what do we already have in place that we don't have to recreate and put some constraints, additional constraints that we've already solved those issues?
Well, and also, how does it relate to our goals as a city council and a community to make sure that we have housing for people who wanna live here?
I don't know how it affects, excuse me here, the tax situation for houses, whether they are going to be, what's the word I can't think of right now? Homestead. If somebody's gonna have a license for renting it out part of the year, does that change their homestead rating?
Yeah, it's
To none.
it's not a homestead. If it's not their residence, it's a non-homestead
Wait.
tax, and we actually make more money on it.
Right, well, even if they're going
it is the
to,
residence, a portion of it
That's
Right.
not
is
homestead.
not
And the portion can be, I think, either a time or a percentage.
So even if they're owner occupied and do it sometime.
The part that's
Okay.
not, yep.
I don't know, I think a lot of us, at least me, thought that we probably had a lot more short-term rentals than we actually, was it the last meeting we talked about this? I think, I don't remember who threw out the,
Toby,
said
because-
15 or
yeah,
something?
and that's actually probably more than there actually is, because I think his viewpoint, what we really need to see is like based on, because there are those that you have one room that you rent out. And if you're looking at actually having a whole house for someone to live in versus those that are a full house that would be rented. And those I think that's less than that 15. I think. We'll
I'd
come
like
down
to see,
into
yeah,
the
it'd be nice if
7
we
or
could
8.
get a breakdown on that, find out how many
That's-
just a room to rent
right.
versus the whole house.
Yeah, and I think we could probably figure that out
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
Looking up on, there's one versus the other. One VRBO and then Airbnb. One says any room, and then the other is it's a complete house. So I think I can't remember which one is which, but we just need to do some research to figure out what that true number is. We can do that.
I was just in my own brain anyhow, thinking that there was probably a lot more of that going on in the city, but
Well, and
Could be though.
a lot of them, you don't know the address essentially until you agree to book it. So,
Well, to that point would be, a registration would be a
right,
great place
but
to
there's,
start.
I'm
how
guessing,
do you make the people register if they don't
Well,
want
you know,
to?
that's
That's-
a
yeah.
good question. And it's also, it's also a matter of, all short-term rentals are supposed to be paying the county accommodation tax at 5% and sales and use tax at 6%. So those are, legal pieces that are part of it that either people are trying to skirt or they don't know. So,
We just put a codicil in there that says, okay, we catch you, you're gonna get fined, and this is what, we'll make the fine pretty steady, or pretty hefty, and, I mean,
That
you know.
needs to be up front on our website so they
Right.
know too.
you know, you have this date to notify us of your plans, and if you don't, and we find it, and you're doing it, and you're using it as such,
I'd certainly like to hear from, community and also people that are engaged in that activity, their thoughts on this. I mean, I think, we need to present a level playing field for all the participants, so everybody knows this is how you're gonna be treated.
I have, it says that we are 33% rentals in the city, and the average is 26, if my memory is correct. I would hate to see that rental percentage go up, because I'd like to have more permanent residents here. That goes back to your affordable housing thing.
I believe that's all rentals,
Yeah.
including long-term.
Yeah.
Right.
that includes all the apartment complexes.
Apartment complexes.
And apartment facility around.
We don't have that breakdown as far as short-term, long-term, that's something that I think it's an essential piece to have before or while we're making our decisions of what we wanna do.
and Brenda, that's not research I think that you have to, or the city has to do. We can get in touch with the folks at the Visit Muskegon. I know they're working on that because they're the ones who are collecting that tax for the county.
Oh, great.
So I am sure, I'll give you their names and
Okay.
you can reach out to them. I'm sure they'll help. They're working at that now to try to make sure they have a handle on who's doing it and how to make sure they're paying, laying on the same
I just say,
field.
how are they looking at enforcement?
I'm sorry?
How are they looking at enforcement? Have you heard anything from? From
Right
them?
now, it's just to find out who's renting and make them aware that they need to pay the taxes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we have to, you would think they'd have to advertise because they want people to rent, so,
Mhm.
I mean, you start searching,
I think that's what they basically do, is
Yeah.
go online.
go online and see
Go
who's
online and
got,
find them,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's,
and say, hey,
But how's it enforced, Jeff, is with fines, if you
So
don't pay your taxes
Yeah.
to the county, they'll fine you.
Oh, yeah.
and that would be a way to track it. It's like, okay, you registered, but you haven't paid your taxes in 2 years. Here's your fine.
So I guess we'll go through this, put it back, and go through this and figure out what parts we like and what we don't.
yeah, I would hope let's say for the next month's work session, we all have something together that we can submit and.
Do we need to keep this separate from just the bigger issue of rentals and the higher average that we have, which we discussed in prior times that I've been on? And then just the issue of housing, so we wanna segment each one? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, no, the issue I see is, I mean, we have a lot of we have oil apartments, we got the ones in front, we got the ones off of Alice Street, or, Mears, we've got the ones off of Slocum. We've got a lot of duplexes and large which probably makes up for the majority of that. I don't know how many
Yeah. but
personal rentals out there, but
Well, there's quite a few personal houses that are rentals as well.
Well, and with our rental inspection program, I think we pretty much have covered all the I don't wanna say legitimate ones, but all the ones that are actually full-time, long-term rentals, basically. This is something we're trying to do to get a hold on the short-term rental situation,
Sure.
and I think they should be combined. So there's a one database of, here's the people, here's the places that are renting, and so we can, we don't have a different policy for long-term and short-term. I think they need to be
They both need to be inspected.
encompassed.
I do wanna, at just at least some point, chat about the appropriate balance of owner occupied versus rental properties.
Well, yes, and
And not just short term, I mean permanent, just that, there are some benefits to have maybe a few more owner occupied, just in general.
most definitely.
Nothing against, people who rent, landlords, nothing against people who, want to rent. But, there are some things to consider with that as well.
I'd like to see the breakdown before I make a decision either way. I wanna see how many are actually home rentals, or, like I said, like large structures that have duplexes and that are designed for rentals. Whitehall apartments and all the other apartments we have around. I'd like to see the breakdown, and we might be okay. I mean, we may be 90% are in there, and there's only 10% within the city, but until I get that number set in front of me, I can't.
Well, we don't have a lot of homes in general, we're less than 4 square miles, so even if we have a whole bunch of apartments, if our neighborhoods are more rental occupied than owner occupied, that's gonna make a
That's
difference.
like I said, that's what I wanna see the numbers. We may
Yeah.
not, I mean, we may have less than what we think, so I think that the number coming before us and let us know that data would be helpful. for us
And
to do
mine is
so.
just anecdotal, I've gone door to door, so.
Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll move on to the election cycle. Anyone wanna put their thoughts out on this?
I'll say, I think it's a good idea. Anytime you can save money, especially on something like that, I mean, why should
We're
we?
into a lot of work too.
Yeah,
Do we have any idea on a rough number, how much it would save and how much time? I mean, I know we talked about in a certain period of time, there would be 3 elections instead of 4 or 2 or something like that. What's the, and if something else needs to be on a ballot that we would not have an election, that group would have to pay for it.
Mhm.
So that's a big piece.
Mm.
How much does it cost to put on an election?
For the city of Whitehall, it costs about, not quite $2,000 for, we're talking election inspector, so labor, materials, test deck, stuff like that, so, and then, my time, that's the part that's increased quite a bit, and postage is included in that as well, so we have roughly almost 700 people that do permanent ballot, so what I'm spending time on right now is getting the ballots ready to be mailed for that. So that's, probably over a week I'll spend getting those prepared. And then over the next month and a half, it'll just be those ballots coming in and then prepping for election day. So that, I don't have a number for, but an actual election day right now, it's $2,000.
I'd say with your time and effort and everything else, it's probably double that.
Yeah,
double
for sure.
half that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked, because that's a
Yeah.
lot. And then,
Mhm.
as the permanent ballots come in, do they just go somewhere until election day and then you feed them?
Correct.
You can't read them before.
No,
Okay.
no. They are sealed away in our vault, until election day.
Is there anybody that's not in favor of this?
We could probably use the money.
Yeah, just saving staff work. Look for any chance we can get to save a little bit of money.
Is there anything in the charter that dictates any piece of this or anything that we would be?
Yeah,
Need
so the charter states that we have them on odd years, but a new resolution from the state about 10 years ago, I think it was, that changed it where we can just change it by resolution. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's something you don't have to do a charter amendment to do.
Yeah, that's
That's specifically addressed in the state statutes.
And it's one that I would also like to hear from the community. I mean, we could certainly use input on that one.
Anybody out there listening and watching? Send your comments to any of the
let us
council
know.
members or to staff. Tell us how you feel about that.
I have a comment. I think that, if we have this election along with the other ones, you're gonna get a lot more voters than if you just have
That's, yeah.
just the council. And mayor, the only thing being voted on, but a lot of people will go, I'm not gonna bother, where if it's a presidential election or even midterm, there's gonna be a lot more people show up and vote, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
More people heard from.
We want to hear from the people. Okay. Informational items. Any informational items?
You talking?
I'm talking to
Anybody in general?
Yeah.
It was on our last, agenda for the work session, and we kinda talked about it, and I don't know where it went from there, but, I'd still like us to address and get it fixed before, well, as soon as possible, but definitely before next summer on the parking of recreational vehicles in right-of-ways or on street, off street, well, we just kinda, I don't know if we threw it back to planning, or we just kinda talked about it and just kinda left it alone,
What's your thought on that, yeah? My understanding is that we came to the determination that we had ordinances already in place to deal with the situation.
I don't know if they specifically mentioned on the street, like parking an RV on the street. If the vehicle, as long as it's tagged, I don't know what recourse there is unless there's.
We just put a limit on it, just like the snow thing is what I think we discussed, and thought that's where it was going. That we put a limit on time, how long it can be there.
Okay.
I know we had talked about like the snow, I mean, you can't park on the road from this time to this time. We would just add it to that ordinance or similar, or tag it somewhere in there add an additional number in there and just put a limit on the amount of time they can park on the road. And I think that would save the problem of what you and I discussed about, in your yard type of stuff and RVs and everything else.
Well, and also we talked a little bit about the, parking in the driveway, that wouldn't be any different. If you park a giant bus-sized RV at the end of your driveway,
Yep.
that's not different than putting an accessory building there, and we don't allow that. So why would we allow somebody to park
Yep.
the whole year a giant RV in their driveway? I don't know that we said we had everything in place and didn't need to do anything, but I don't know where we left it.
No,
either.
I'll put on the work session for next month.
Okay, I mean, I'd just like to, I just don't think that, you know, I mean, the three instances that have come up for the last 2 years, with what we have in place right now, don't solve those problems. That's why we still have those problems, so obviously we need to do something additional.
I commented at the last one about that trailer out on Warner.
Is it a trailer or?
And I didn't realize that it had been moved a little bit from one time to the next
Oh,
to make
that's-
it legal, but I sure wouldn't, if I owned one of those houses, I wouldn't appreciate looking at that trailer every day, even if it's been moved 10 feet or whatever. You know. I think there needs to be, I would like to see a way to address that. I just don't think it's fair to the people that live there to be looking at that trailer all the time.
One of them that lives there owns that, so, I mean, that's.
It's city street.
Yes, and that's what I said with the parking, we could solve that issue pretty quick. If we just had that codicil on the parking, that hey, you can't park in city's parking spots over X amount of time. That would limit that trailer, right from the get. I mean, you say, hey, you can't park on city streets more than 12 hours or 24 hours, and doesn't matter what it is, I mean, that would do that, it would do that. That would be the easy one, but like what Scott was talking about on the road right away, where they park between the sidewalk, they put a trailer between the sidewalk and the road, yeah, that will have to be addressed a different way, I would
Sounds like work session.
think.
So I'm sorry, there's a trailer in between the sidewalk and the street?
There was.
There was down on Division. I think it's gone
Sometimes they
again,
even
I think.
have cords running to, so they can live in it while they're parked there.
That could be deemed a nuisance. But then we're going on a slippery slope where the city manager can call random things a nuisance.
I'd rather see it in an ordinance where they can enforce it and go out there and deal with it. Cause the people know, I mean, it's an easy, it should be an easy fix. On our part or the city's part.
We do have an ordinance that camping's not allowed in the city, so.
Yeah.
I mean, if they got a water hose hooked up to it and power cord hooked up to it.
Yeah.
Once again, playing the
They're
definition of
just-
camping.
It's just for the kids to play. I've heard that one
Yeah.
before.
So,
I mean, there's one down here on Spring Street. It's not a RV trailer. It's a small utility trailer. And it's the same as the one that was on Warner Street. It's not even on the guy's property. It's on the property of the people across the street from them. But they don't complain about it and they don't care about it because their lot is so deep and it's on their side yard. It doesn't matter.
Councilmember, the police chief went over and talked to the owner of that trailer and said he had to move it if he doesn't have express consent from the owners of that house. So it should be gone. I drove by today and I can't recall if it was or not, but Chief Mahoney went over to talk to us about it because you're not like right behind the ordinance. You can't park on somebody else's property without permission. So he doesn't have permission, so he's got to move it.
Okay. Maybe we got that one.
maybe we got that
figured
solved.
out. I got another question and I don't know who it directs to or what the answer to it is. Alleys. Whose responsibility is it to clear or maintain alleys so you can get up and down with a vehicle? I mean, technically, the alley is the city's property, correct? Or is it part of
Let's
it?
see how it's written. Either way, it's an easement, so we have authority over it. And if there's obstructions or debris, I believe we could cite for that.
I mean, there's one over here, let's see, what's this road, Elizabeth?
Spring Street.
Huh?
This direction or this
This
direction?
one's
Baldwin.
Baldwin.
Baldwin, between Baldwin and Livingston. Right over that first, that one block of alley there. I mean, you have to drive down all the overgrowth like zigzagging until you get all the way over to Slocum.
So is it debris or is it
It's-
overgrown?
Overgrowth.
Okay, so that's the property owner coming from the property.
Well, if the alley is the city's,
Are the,
On the alley?
you cannot drive a straight line down the alley because of all the
If
overgrowth.
vegetation is coming from the property owner's property, then it's their responsibility. If
Yeah.
if there are trees hanging over your yard, it's their responsibility.
No.
No, whatever is in there.
I know in the past our DPW has gone down the alleys and cleared them.
Yep.
Yeah, but the problem is a lot of residents think that's a place to offload their junk.
Yeah.
And then DPW is stuck with it. Where if they brought it to a dump, that's the right way of getting rid of it.
I'm not talking about debris, I'm talking about,
For
I mean, this one over here, I drove down it last Friday, and, you cannot, I drove down it with my truck and it folded one of the mirrors in, and it's rubbing on both sides of the truck, and I followed what I could follow as far as it being open. But it's majorly overgrown.
Yeah,
And I didn't know if it
it's-
was the city's responsibility because it's the city's alley,
I'm not sure.
or if it's the property owner's responsibility, and the city can make the property owner
Yeah,
clean it up.
I'm not sure.
Well, if a branch falls on your neighbor's property from your tree, it's their responsibility. They have the legal right to cut whatever, any of my trees that grows on any of the neighbors, they have the
Right.
legal right to cut at the fence line.
Yes.
Yes.
So again, I'm gonna play the public safety card. Fire trucks need to get down that. To fight structure fires from other sides, so those should be cleared, either whether we do it or we make the lane. I know from being on council as long as I have, I know for a fact that our DPW has gone down the alleys and cut back the trim those back. And I don't know when the last time it was done, but it sounds like it needs to be done again, so.
Do they charge the property owner?
No.
Nope.
No, we
It's
take
like
care of it
consumers
because
or
it's
whatever with
because
power.
it's our alley.
It's our alley, yeah.
And we need to make the alley usable.
That's
So-
gonna be a lot of work, because there's a lot of alleys that
Mhm.
are in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yep.
And what's our priority?
Look at the worst ones first.
They
I
have
do.
machines that you can drive down and they're vertical.
Oh, yeah.
Sing everything off one side, go down the other side. County uses those a lot.
The other problem we run into is there's a lot of utilities that run up and down those alleys on the backside.
That's true.
You get a wire down and back there and they gotta get to it, so.
I
would say we
I
need
just
to
assumed that,
Start
that
working.
the alleys were the cities, because most of the alleys have the sewer line running down the alley.
A lot of the public utilities, yeah.
I don't know,
So,
I can't say for certain, so
There's quite a few of them.
I know my alley is that way. The sewer line runs down the alley, and the water line runs down the road.
I have something for a work session, we've talked about it, but not in a while, just the slip of property that is now ours next door to Tannery Bay, which has a conservation easement on it, and to what extent we're going to make that property useful to the public, that lawn come as a public access.
So the engineering quote came back at $199,000
Good grief,
just for the engineering drawing, and
that's ridiculous.
the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority struck it down. They didn't vote for it, and so it's very well known that public access is necessary. But before the next Brownfield meeting, we're all going to meet down there to just get a look at it, see what it could possibly be.
Can you, alert council to, the company that has built there broke ground in 2006. And public access was promised.
Yeah, right.
It was gonna be that pier that there's some houses on. And so this is what we got, and it has a conservation easement on, and technically, I don't feel like I wanna take that off. On the other hand, we have to. If we
Well,
have
it's like,
some passive use.
what constitutes an easement? Do we need a walkway that's ADA compliant, or do we have natural boundaries that public can wander on and go fishing?
Well, is that property ours? That slip of property?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
think it
that's
is.
the one they
yeah.
donated.
Yeah,
Yes.
that,
Yeah,
that,
I think it is.
So it's
Yeah.
more than an easement, it is
We
public.
own it, it's
Yeah,
it's
we
our
own it.
property.
Yeah,
Right, it's just sand piles right now though, so.
And the public can have access to that, but from what I've heard of individuals, that's not a good place to fish. So,
it's probably not could you at least copy us on that meeting? I'd
Yeah,
like to
definitely.
walk down there as well, see what's going on.
I think Mr. Hubler sent a note around saying the engineering fee was 99,000. Was that a typo? Is it 199?
199.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Yeah. Well, I thought we were supposed to be given a public access. I mean, we got grants and loans to help prepare that property that we're still not paid off, and that's what we get?
No, we're still paying
Yeah,
every month.
I think one more year.
I don't know.
Well, that's all I'm gonna say that's, I like to say.
Back to what constitutes an easement. Or walkway or whatever.
Was,
Access, that's what it is, sorry. I keep saying easement, I don't need to.
Yeah,
So it sounds like Brownfield's working on this, so we just,
it's been a long time, Jeff, I'd like to speed it
understand
up a
that,
little
but-
bit.
but, I mean, if the engineering fees just came up, we gotta let them figure out what they're gonna do. I
Sounds like we need
understand it's
another
gonna.
engineering bid.
yes.
I think we can speed it up. I think I'd like to at least be there.
Well, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, the public meetings.
I know, but I'd like to be specifically noticed on this, if you could send it around, Brenda. I mean, not just me, but I think we all need to. I just feel like 2006, ground was broken for that development, and public access was promised. That's a long time ago.
and it has been delivered. They gave their portion of the property combined with the existing city's proportion of the property, and it's public awareness that that is public access.
I'm gonna repeat
was-
my comment, but I'm not gonna say anything else because it wouldn't be nice.
That was a very bad trade, the way I understand it. But I was gonna ask you too, were you going to get another engineering quote on that? I mean, I guess it's not gonna come into this
I wanna
quarter.
know, what, Braw has the ball on it. They make the initial decisions on it. I'm staff support for it. But at the next session, we're set to talk about it.
Is there agreement and what is it that they wanna do or that we should do?
No,
with that
and
public?
that's the problem. That's what the next session, they need quarterly, that's what the next session's about, like where do we go from here? Like engineering for this particular plan was 199. Is there something else simpler that can be done at a lot less expensive rate?
I thought the conservation district was looking at that as well down there.
They did look at it and had some plans, but then Eagle DNR got involved and said, oh no, you gotta do all this other stuff.
Yeah, and the part of the reason it was so expensive is because it was a really elaborate walkway and nice area, but the Eagle requirements made it pretty, drove the cost up.
The parcel the parcel we were given had a conservation easement on it.
Keep in mind, this whole idea of public access started with people trespassing on private property.
Steve, I've got in documents that public peninsula was going to be a public walkway, and that's the brownfield
It was gonna be a
information we
sidewalk.
have.
It
It
was,
was
yeah.
gonna be a sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's the
I'll
agreement.
grab it out.
5-foot sidewalk.
I'll grab it out. I don't wanna argue, cause I actually asked year after year, when are we gonna have that public access? And I got tired of asking, you know, and I thought Scott was gonna bring it to us on a work session. I don't wanna take up more time with it. I've had my say several times.
I'll forward you the last minutes with my explanation if that helps.
That would, thank you.
Okay.
What is a conservation easement and who issues it?
Because they were allowed to fill in some wetlands, they had to put some of the property into a conservation easement, which would mean that there would be restrictions on what you could do, because this is a lakeshore property. So those are restrictions that we probably want to somehow maintain.
That conservation easement said that you cannot drive on it, you cannot compact the soil, you cannot cut trees, you cannot do basically anything.
Yeah, and they're not the bad
And-
guy, it was all part of an agreement for development of the property. There are certain areas that were parceled out to be conservation easement, and apparently that's the one that we were given.
And the city had a responsibility to maintain it that way, and we didn't.
We traded a 5-foot sidewalk for over an acre of conservation easement that people can go on. They can walk on it, they can get access to the lake, to a spot where no one wants to fish.
It's not a vision.
But you can't get to it.
There's no
You can
place
get to it.
park.
You have to go down,
From the rail trail.
from the rail trail, you have to go down the hill, because it's private property,
And there's no
On
place,
either side.
there's no place to park.
and there's no place to park.
They parked the same place that they parked when they were trespassing. All those spots on Lake Street. All those spots on Lake Street.
It would have been a good trade, it would have been good to leave it the way it was and have people with a 5-foot sidewalk that they could walk down to the lake on and look at the lake instead of have a 1 acre piece of ground that is
But
that is basically inaccessible.
those weren't the people that were asking for the easement, it was the ice fishermen and the fishermen that wanted that easement, so they could get down to the lake. And to
Well,
the ice.
it was more than that, I mean,
Yeah.
it was more.
They were good, they talked about putting a
They were-
gazebo out there. for people to sit
Yeah,
down and all kinds of stuff
putting a
back
restaurant out there at one of the places.
Not the restaurant there, the restaurant was supposed to be in with a clubhouse
there. Yeah,
closer.
and then they dropped that.
I've got
There
the
was gonna be
plans.
a
I'll
gazebo
I'll dig
built
them up.
out on the end of the point.
I want to be clear though, the idea is not abandoned. It's just, it came back a lot more expensive than Brownfield thought it was going to, so they need to go to the next meeting and maybe figure out a less expensive plan. Not saying that at
Oh,
all.
and I appreciate that, no, and I don't think it's being abandoned, I guess I was expressing my frustration with still not really. I've said it already, I'm not gonna
It wasn't a
repeat it,
good trade.
no.
No, it wasn't.
It was also,
Absolutely not. They didn't want all these people riding their bicycles, cause it would have been connected to the bike trail. And people would have rode their bicycles out that sidewalk, out to the end of the point, sat down there on benches or in a gazebo or wherever. And they didn't want all those people traversing through their development there. And I could see their point, but it wasn't fair to the people that negotiated that deal in the first place.
Yeah,
To-
and that
to
was
get
years
what we
ago
got.
too.
Pardon?
Yeah, and that was years ago too.
It was a long time ago.
Oh, there's three
It
homes
was original.
on that property
I
that,
remember talking to Mick McGraw about that, you know.
no offense against the people living in the homes, it's just that that was supposed to be public access.
It was. I don't think they liked that idea. Well, to be honest with that. You'd have to say that they didn't want lots of people riding bicycles.
But that was part of the deal because the city got grants and loans and that waterfront grant specified public access. It had to be in there for us to get the grant for that. So it was a requirement.
All right, we need to move along to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment?
I would. This whole discussion has been pretty amusing. I sat right there and I saw the plan. and there was gonna be a restaurant and public access. And then Slick Mick came along and got you guys again. He and Hubler got you guys over and over and over again. He violated the EPA agreement by dredging. He was not supposed to dredge out there, and he pulled, I don't know how many tons out of the front of there. And he disturbed the pollution that's on the bottom that was supposed to be left undisturbed. So this discussion about, well, we got to trade. No, you didn't. You got shafted. And for us to spend $200,000 on engineering for a little piece of swamp, why don't you invest the money and put it out in, the peninsula there in front of Lion's Den? Give them a boat ramp. Put a fishing pier out there. But this whole idea is just absolute, it's astounding to me that we even discussed this. $200,000 for engineering. Well, we'll look around and find a better deal on it. $100,000 would be too much. Right? It's just ridiculous. He had the drawings right here, and that's what he agreed to, and you guys let him get away with this. He broke a contract. That was a contract. If I agree to a set of drawings as a contractor, I have a contract. I don't deviate from that and build something different. Change the location of the building. Nothing. He violated a contract, and you let him get away with it. I was amazed when it was happening. He shows up and he awards everybody, here, I've got this piece of property for you. It's just mind-boggling.
And $30,000 to develop it.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, what a gift. And every place he's gone, he's pulled something like this. Talk to the people in Grand Rapids about Eastbrook Homes. He has a reputation as a snake, and he is.
Yeah, I got an informational item I want you guys to think about. I live on Warner. It's not the best location, traffic. But I gotta tell you, I'm sick of the noise, and I don't think the city is doing anything about their noise ordinances. I'm at shift change time, and during the day, the motorcycles are loud. They rattle my windows, they rattle my eardrums, they rattle my feelings and my teeth. And they say, well, you'd be able to hear them. Well, yeah, we can hear them, but they don't have to take off with their engines revving at $9,000. They could be reasonable in the residential areas. I would like to see our local police department start pulling these people over and citing them for noise. You're totally disregarding the noise ordinances in this town as far as I'm concerned.
And speed. They don't give out tickets.
So we had police set out at how much shift change. They counted 50 vehicles. 12 of them went over 25 by a little bit, like 2 miles an hour. And then the one person actually, like 10 miles over, was pulled over, who was a local resident, and it had nothing to do with how I met.
Not picking on how I met.
No, I'm just saying that shift, like, I got a different complaint, and that's how we handled it. And, like, that
Come down there and sit in that corner, 10:45 tonight. You'll be able to hear the motorcycles all the way to the highway.
I do have something to add to this, if it's okay.
Go ahead.
When I was on last time, one of my terms, we did change, we had the option of, we changed our noises.
Warner Benson.
We changed our noise ordinance, and we had a discussion, Brenda might remember, I don't know if it was during your time, and where we had a discussion about a decibel meter. Is that the right thing?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have one. We talked about sharing one with one of you, but I think there were some also concerns about legal maybe will be.
Training.
You can get a decibel app for your iPhone and hold out and tell you the decibel.
Hold it in court.
I have one on my phone.
Won't hold up in
Okay,
court.
I'm losing my train of thought, now I lost it.
The chief of police said it would require training for all of the officers to use the equipment, and that would be prohibitively expensive. That was the argument made. The real argument is, we don't want to pull the noise ordinance on Howmac.
Okay, let me go back, I just remembered it, so, no, it was a discussion about that, and it wouldn't hurt to revisit it, just because we have had a lot of, it just seems like noise ordinance? It just seems like we have, there seem to be it's very popular to have a loud motorcycle.
If they're Harleys. I
Last
think
I
they have some kind of an exemption for Harleys.
Last I remember, when we were speaking of the noise ordinances, when we were redoing the ordinances a few years back, from what I remember, the noise ordinance for the city reads that it is up to the discretion of the office.
But do we have the legal ability to make it stick? What would we need?
Not if we don't have a decimal meter.
Yeah, it's difficult to,
That's what I'm thinking.
yeah, unless you have something that's
Okay.
recorded and all that.
Yeah, you need a meter and you need training on meters. An app on an iPhone will not hold up in court, guaranteed.
Well, could we at least once in a while put something in social media, our newsletter saying, if you have a loud motorcycle, maybe quiet it down, people have been complaining. Just, I mean, at least just say something, I see, I mean, come on, it's worth a try.
Wouldn't blast
But we
them.
tell people not to steal stuff in stores and they do it every day.
Does anybody else?
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, this is supposed to be,
Okay,
I
sorry.
appreciate the discussion, but it's public comment.
Right. Let's,
Yeah, we don't do it yet.
we've got about 4 minutes till the next meeting, so unless there's anybody has an urgent need for public comment. All right, we're adjourned.
Tell everybody, just put
Six
your-
oh one, I call this meeting to order. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball.
First up is approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Been moved in seconds. Any discussion?
Do we need to, it's already on here, so I guess we don't. I didn't know the deer ordinance thing, but
All those in favor of the agenda as submitted, say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Next is the consent agenda.
I will move for approval of the consent agenda for August, September 9, 2025.
Second.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion?
I have one question on accounts payable. Page 105, Elite Air for $390. I know it's not a lot of money, but I don't understand why we're spending money to fix an air conditioner at something that's supposed to be a storage facility. People that are over there getting storage stuff don't need an air-conditioned office to sit in. And the garage is not air-conditioned as far as I know, so.
If I may.
Yes.
I do believe that is the old ambulance building, and those are, a multi-unit heat and air. From the years that I worked there, it's in the wall, it's kinda like what you get at the hotels. In the wall unit, that's how, there were 4 or 5 in that facility that does that. The garage is heated by forced air up in the corner, that's what I remember, unless they've changed it, but that's what that was.
You know, if it is storage and it's not climate controlled in the summertime, you get mold.
Okay. Any further questions? All those in favor of the consent agenda, say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Consent agenda is approved. Next is messages from the mayor, council, and city manager. Start with Jeff, city council.
Nothing on here.
Yep.
I don't have anything tonight.
Steve?
Well, I've heard several complaints from people on the marina, how it's not being kept up as far as the restrooms, as far as the weeds, and certainly in the fishing dock. Now, I haven't been down there to look at it, but I've had people complain to me, so I just wonder who's taking care of that, or if there's people down there working that could be doing more stuff than they're doing, or what's going on with that.
I sprayed for weeds a week and a half ago, I was there, so.
The whole marina? Oh. Okay, well, maybe that took care of that part.
Well, there weren't, marina workers for the weekdays, they were only on during the weekend this past week. And then we just got a quote to fix a lot of the concrete and pier work for about $60,000. There's about 193 in that account, so should be able to get that work done.
That was on the fishing portion of the pier?
It was a massive amount of
Oh.
concrete work.
Okay. Well, hopefully that solves their problem. I'll
Yeah.
talk to them.
It's had some, it's atrophied at least one, but the Marina Fund has the money.
Okay. Thank you.
It'd be good if they gave you specific things that
Yeah,
you need to repair.
right.
That would help.
I'll find out.
Thank you.
And as far as the bathroom goes, that every week that thing's clogged up with by somebody. So our workers are doing what they can, but people aren't being respectful of city property either.
we talking the marina bathroom for the patrons or the one at?
Yeah, but people just go into it sometimes.
Oh,
Thought they
okay,
had
so they don't have to have a key. to
They
get
do,
in.
some people have codes.
Okay.
Tom?
The only thing I have today is I want to call out some praise for Dan, our new city manager. I'm very impressed so far the way that he jumped in and started addressing important issues. If you ask him a question, he researches it and gives you a definite answer. He's looking into ways to save money for the city, such as, competitive bids, looking into that issue with, can we eliminate the off-year voting to save money? Just a lot of different things that have really impressed me, looking at the possibility of a way to shorten the time for getting our roads fixed. And, I've just been extremely happy with what I've seen so far. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll second all that.
I'll say
ditto.
Yeah, ditto. In memory of Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor Hatch. Ditto Hatch. Deb?
I ditto to that, and also, I know that one of the pieces was to keep the marina open for a little bit longer to try that out. Can you give us an update on how that went? I know we were gonna try it by week.
Pretty good. Made $5,000 worth of sales. So profit probably $1,000.
Another issue.
That's all, thank you.
As council knows, the senior dinner was switched to October 27th because of the chamber dinner on October 20th. And I'll get a news release out to Brenda, but that's free for City of Whitehall seniors. Isn't that cool? Free food. So, if you're not a senior, I don't know. I'm gonna ask Christy Marsh to say, can we just, we'll make you pay a little bit, probably like $5 or something. So.
Did we ever get a amount or the age of seniors on that? I know we discussed that at the last.
My understanding was it was 62
62.
at the senior center.
At the senior, whatever and we could probably say whatever age we want to for our seniors, right? Because, Goodwill does 55, but anyway, I will find that out and we'll get all of the information out, but I happened to see Christy, actually in Goodwill, and, we chatted about, and she was fine with changing it to the 27th, so I'm hopeful that that's what she suggested, so. And then we'll, get back together and pick out the next one. I did also want to mention, I think I've mentioned this before, but September 25th in Muskegon at the Annis Water Resources Institute, the organization I work for, along with Dr. Rick Radisky, some folks might remember him from the work he did on White Lake, a scientist, colleague, friend. We actually set up a Muskegon County PFAS task force this year. I work for an environmental group and he's retired, kind of, and he's one of the area's experts on PFAS. They're forever chemicals, and Muskegon County, because we have so many manufacturing sites, has the most sites along the lake shore, and that's why we're setting up this task force to look what we can do to partner with folks and mainly protect public health, because there are definitely some serious public health issues associated with it. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew they were invited. This is open to the public. It's something that we might as well start learning a little bit more about. We've got some fact sheets. We're getting some for kids to start. Let's try to, I'm probably all cooked with PFAS in my body at this point, but I think a focus, I guess all you can do is laugh, right? But I think a focus on what products parents can purchase for their kids, to avoid exposure, because it does stay with you. So we've got other fact sheets, and then we're applying, the Community Foundation wants us to apply for funds because we have found some people who are not in the state study areas, boundary areas, have tested positive for PFAS at their own expense. So we're looking to set up a fund that people can apply to get the screening test. Because not everybody can afford that. So we do have Muskegon Chemical. So Dan, I'm hopeful somebody, DPW, somebody can attend that meeting, because we are inviting every single municipality that's impacted to sit on that task force. And then the Whitehall landfill in the township is a PFAS site, the Whitehall wastewater. And unfortunately, there's likely to be more, because when you look, you're finding it. It's a very ubiquitous substance that was used in a lot of different applications. So let me know if you want information, and I can circulate it with. Oh, we're glad we're going to have 2 speakers from the environmental agency come and talk about the program as well. So.
Could I ask you something about that?
Yes.
Is that a chemical that's used as a for water to keep it dry, like Gore-Tex or something like that?
Yeah, and Rick actually was one of the ones to help uncover the problem over at Rockford with that tannery and kind of brought it to the state's level of attention. And so Wolverine, yeah, it was Wolverine.
Part of shoes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Firefighting foam was full of it too. I've
Yep.
been in it since '84, so.
Yeah.
And it's in rainproof clothing, and it's in kids wear, it's
Yeah.
in food wrappers.
It's in everything. And it's
Scotch
very.
Guard.
Yeah. And what we're gonna do is let's focus on making sure people are not drinking water that's contaminated. Because that's one big way people would, consuming contaminated water, if you drink a lot of water like we're supposed to over years. That's one, we wanna make sure everybody is protected. And the state actually said they're glad that we're setting up this task force, kind of like what we did with White Lake, to help bring people into start educating on the issue and doing what we can to prevent exposure. So I'll have more information as we go along.
Well,
That's all.
city manager, anything you'd like to?
Well, appreciate the compliment, but I get to work with really good people, so thanks. One thing that was mentioned that I feel I need to bring up is like engineering projects, big projects, capital projects. They will be bidded out and not automatically given to anybody. Brian Armstrong and I are in the process of bidding out the lift station and the force main on Lake Street. So I just want to assure you that we are doing our due diligence to get the best deal for Whitehall. So thank you.
All right. Next, we will move on to public comment.
Kim Sear, Muskegon County Commissioner, District 1. I was at a meeting this morning, emergency management people. I don't know if you're aware, but September is Emergency Preparedness Month for the whole month. So we are going to, the county is sponsoring along with Meyer and Michigan Ready a Prepare Fair. And in this Prepare Fair, you're gonna basically it's a family affair. They want you to bring your family, bring the kids. What they're going to have is meet local first responders there, explain to people how they can prepare for emergencies, explore. They'll be able to take a look at emergency response vehicles that are going to be set up there, interaction with exhibitor displays, and free food while it lasts. So get there early. This is going to be on September 30th, 2025 from 4 to 7 p.m. and it's going to be held down at the Heritage Landing. And they did request if the city would like to send any of their vehicles over there, something that you can display, I don't know if it be police vehicles or fire or whatever it might be, to kind of represent the city of Whitehall. They would be open to that and would like to see that actually, so that we get as much representation as we can. So and also they said that State Police is gonna have the helicopter there, so, but they wouldn't let me ride it, so. Just thought I'd ask, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to make a public comment? Public comment?
I do everything you do, yeah. Times for the places.
Yeah.
I realize this is unorthodox, and I thank you for indulging my middle-aged indiscretion. This is in regard to playing every Monday night. I want to thank the City Council for letting me do that, and I wrote a song this afternoon to express that, if that's all right.
Please.
Is that all right with you?
Oh,
You guys
yeah.
have the drummer's view right here.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. It's in tune when I bought it. I want to thank you, City Council. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you, lovely people, on summer Monday nights who were there. I want to thank the friends and neighbors. I was putting up with a little bit of extra sound. It blended nicely with the trucks and motorcycles that rolled so loudly through our town. They went through town. Here's the part in the song where my strap breaks. Awkward moment of silence, and the bridge. Now the only thing that I really know, no matter who I think I am, or who I think I know, when the world is stepping on your neck and you're as angry as can be, I'm glad I find some music in this community. I thank police, fire, EMS, and DPW, the gnarly heifer, Hanson Hill, and Mr. Bill. I thank the Playhouse, Fetch, and all the musicians who, when asked if they can, always say, I will. If you're asked, and you can, say I will. The end of this song contains, I know, by show of hands, who's bored? I was thinking, I just want to thank all the musicians that came in here. So there's Jim Allen, Trent Smiley, and David Greeley, my brother Mitch Foster, Stephen Ogden, R.J. Nordland, Ben McNeil, Thomas Neely, James Sibley, Eric Englade, Bobby Bryan, Freddie Cunningham, and John Smith. There's also Shelby Mason and Rich Martin, Dan Giacobazzi, Jeffrey Niemeyer, and Max Morrison, Justin Abdeck, Aaron Wong, and Mike Lynch, and Christopher Rawl, Carl Johnson, Andy Urquhart, and Chaz Milliken. There's Justin Wieringa and Scott Nesbitt, Monica Ogden, Eric Smith, and Dan Seabolt, Richard King, Karen Snyder-Smith, Ezekiel Kinney, J.D. Jones, and Reagan Abramson. And I hope each year we can do one by one, keep adding to the list. I got about 35 people that have participated freely, either on a drop-in notice or on a committed basis. And even though they don't make a ton of money, it's been really good the last couple of years, and the tips have been wonderful. And I thank you guys for allowing me to close the streak. Not me personally, but I mean obviously. But thank you for allowing that to happen, and I hope it's a positive thing. I know all the votes won't be there, but if we are allowed to do it, I'm grateful. So that's it.
Thank you. All right, is there any further public comments?
How do you follow that?
Yeah.
Any more songs?
This YouTube video is gonna go viral.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we move on to old business. I don't believe we have any old business to go on. So we will move on to new business. Resolution 2526, sidewalk snow blower.
I will move resolution 2526, sidewalk snow blower.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this?
I have some questions. I asked to be answered when I wasn't available for the budget meeting, and they were never answered. I would like to know the specifics of the unit that the city is planning on buying, mainly the width of the unit and the width of the snow blower. And until I know that, I will not vote to approve anything, because I don't think we can approve anything without knowing. The problem with the old snow blower was it was too big. You can't run a 48-inch snow blower down a 48-inch sidewalk when it's got 2 to 3 inches of overgrowth on both sides. So if you're looking at buying a 48-inch wheel-based vehicle with a 48-inch snow blower, it won't work right. We're gonna have the same problem that we've had for ever since we've been snow blowing sidewalks. In case anybody can't see, Dan's looking at the specs right now. So that's why they're silent.
Well, the wheelbase is 45 inches, width is 48.5. So, you're going to get 48.
Yeah. Does it say anything about how wide the snow blower is itself?
Well, with wheel extensions, 54.5.
Just, you know,
I wanna add that I spoke to members of DPW, and they did look at this machine and were very impressed with it. They said compared to the machine that we have now, the one we have now is a toy compared to this one. This one is meant to do this kind of work.
Dan, any idea the model number on that one?
4520.
Okay, yep, I got it right here.
and I guess the only other comment that I want to throw out on it is spending that kind of money for a snow blower and not knowing whether we're gonna have people to be able to use it or not, I think is an awful big expenditure. Since we've never been able to get the city manager, the previous city manager, to commit to whether we were gonna do it, it was whether people were available and whether funding was available.
I mean, we had a gentleman last year in the DPW that was assigned to clean sidewalks.
Well,
Yes.
the one that was hired 2 years ago, that was supposed to be what his main job was. He was a year-round employee, but his main job was to do the sidewalks and the sidewalks only, which never happened.
I also see that this unit, just in a cursory look here, is this unit has attachments. This is the only thing. It's got a loader, power brake, broom, and a power motor. I mean, so this will do more than just clean sidewalks if I'm looking at the right model.
Yes, that's one of the things that the DPW personnel told me, that was, they liked it, that it had the ability to add these other attachments, so it could be used not just for snow blowing.
So it's essentially like the old holder that we had back 10, 12 years ago, articulating one in the middle.
I have just one question on it. Have we ever, it says that we're authorized to purchase through a state-approved co-op purchasing program. Are we making the assumption that they are cheaper than you can buy elsewhere? The reason I ask that is because when both of my businesses, I sold to governments cheaper than the government-approved co-op program. So I'm wondering if we are still checking into things like that.
Yeah, I can't speak to it.
Let's table this for now.
Yeah.
Let me do some more research. I have questions too, so.
Okay.
Do you want me to, what do you want me to do with the motion that we have on the table?
Withdraw.
I will withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw the second.
Okay, all right.
So there's 41 different attachments for that.
So we will move on to ordinance 2501, deer management.
I'll make a motion to approve, ordinance 2501, deer management.
Second.
Moved in second, is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Holmstrom,
Yes.
Sedino,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Zemer,
Yes.
Hillebrand,
Yes.
Kabala,
Yes,
Salter.
Yes. Ordinance 2501 is approved. Next is the fan club request.
I will move the fan club request. Do you want the details?
Yeah.
Okay, my computer died, sorry. That approval to repeat the closure of Mears Avenue from Memorial Day to Mondays to Labor Day Mondays. And requesting closure of the Northwest parking lot on okay, 7 to 10 p.m. beginning Memorial Day going to Labor Day. Sorry about that. Computer died.
I'll second that.
It's been moved in second, is there any discussion?
I'll just throw out my same comment as always, that I'm not in favor of using public property for private gain. And I believe that there are alternatives to closing the road. And nobody ever wanted to look at them before and probably still doesn't want to. So therefore I will be a no vote.
I have a question on that too. I believe that there is some conversation going on right now about ADA compliance. Has that been resolved? I think, if not, I think it would be a good idea to get that permanently resolved. I'm in favor of this and I'd like for it to happen. But I think that, it'd be good to make sure that the ADA issue is permanently resolved.
So Toby went there again today, and there was one table out of however many they have that were too close together. So one out of, I don't know, just say 7 rows of tables. Him and the owner moved it.
Yeah, I don't know what the details are or anything. I think that there's supposed to be a clear walkway through there, and there hasn't always been when I've driven by it.
Right. When I go, I've had mixed. One time I go and it's perfectly fine, and another time I go, it's mashed up.
It's because people move them and they can be moved back, but people who sit at those tables sometimes will move a table to join with another table because they're,
Right, so
yeah.
A fix would be to require like stanchions and everything. All the tables have to remain on the stanchions, but then we're given a city property to have him put in or have
Rather
the
have them
business.
have movable.
Yeah.
I have, yeah, sorry.
Is it a case where we can be sued for not complying on a regular basis? I don't know.
It's federal law.
Yeah, it's,
No comments from the audience, please.
Sorry.
there's federal guidelines, but
Ridiculous.
it's we're not the one blocking it. We're it's not like it's our stuff that we're putting on our sidewalk. We're authorizing somebody to use a sidewalk, and yeah, for that brief period, there's not enough room. So I don't know.
I don't think it hurts to continue just to politely request them to do it.
Maybe we could adjust this, that like require them to keep it behind a certain.
Or maybe they could just place tape on the something where the tables are supposed to be, and maybe have a little sign that says, please don't move the tables without.
Yeah, there seems to be simple solutions, but
Yeah. Well,
compelling is different.
I don't want the city to get in trouble.
yeah, I don't, I think we would probably be notified before we were sued. I think they would probably send a letter saying we can fix it first.
Yeah.
We could probably talk to the Disability Network as well and get their input. Muskegon, they're a good group. I did have a comment on this myself, but I didn't wanna.
Go ahead.
I tried to make it to almost every one of the fan club performances, and if you haven't gone, you can tell that this is, it's definitely a fan club. It's musicians that have played, many have played together years, literally years, and going back to when Tommy and his brothers were, you know, in a band, and it's amazing to see them because they are very collegial. They have fun with it. Tommy's kind of a one-man show. If you've ever seen him, he's a little bit of a jokester, and but they're all tremendous musicians. And I don't mean this, Scott, as a rebuttal of you, but they're not making much money. You know what I mean? They, especially when, you know, they've got like 10, you know, sometimes 10 people in the group that are playing and circulating, but I just feel like they provide such a nice time for everybody, you know. So I think it's morphed into a really cool event.
It's good for the city. I'd like to see more stuff like that,
Yeah.
quite honestly.
I'm not against the event.
Yeah, I know
I'm
that.
against using public property.
I know. I got what you, and you certainly have that right. I was just commenting more that they're, and I shouldn't have made it as a rebuttal, sorry, I didn't mean that, but it's just that we live in an area where for such a small community, we have just such a tremendous group of musicians that play. It's just really fabulous. I'm glad to be able to participate. So.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'd like a roll call, please.
Okay, Kabala,
Yes.
Holmstrom,
Yes.
Brown,
No.
Siginga,
Yes.
Zemer,
Yes.
Hilbrand,
Yes.
and Salter.
Yes. Motion is approved. Next up is public comment. Make a comment.
So irrespective of the fact that it's a community venue, which I think is great. I mean, anybody who's ever watched Tommy Foster in action is just, you have a wonderful time. But there's this issue. Now we're gonna rely on the good graces of the folks who own Fetch to make sure that there's a 3 foot, and that 3 foot is minimum, like in any building spec. It's preferably 4 feet. We're going to rely on them to keep this space open. Now we have people, you know, drinking and having a good time, and there's nothing wrong with that, but chairs get moved around. Now somebody coming in a wheelchair has got to weave their way through, and that is a violation of the law. And contacting the disability network is a fool's errand because they don't know what they're talking about. They came here and they told city council and city manager that the ADA was suggestions. I'm here to inform you it is U.S. code. It is federal law. So my question is, logically, if you can take 3 feet out of the middle of something, why can't you move it over and take 3 feet off the edge? Why can't you put stanchions along the edge between their party area, the bar, let's have it just be the bar, and the curb? Why is that not a solution? Why does it have to be right through the middle of their thing? And incidentally, as a private citizen, I kind of resent the fact that you guys are saying, well, we have a bar here, and if you want to walk down the sidewalk, you've got to walk through the middle of the bar. I have nothing against people drinking. But if I want to go into a bar, I'll go into a bar. I don't want to walk down a public sidewalk and be forced to walk through a bar. That's just wrong. There are people here who have very, very, very strong feelings about alcohol. It has a lot to do with the church, their church. So there's no reason they should be forced to do it either. And again, the Haynes are nice people. I have nothing against them, but if they can take 3 feet out of the middle, I don't see why you can't just move everything over 3 feet and take 3 feet off the edge. It is just illogical that that's not been a solution. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Alright, so, what he's saying about Fetch, the owners are wonderful people, I've met them. I like the inside of Fetch, it's really cool. But that's not Fetch's personal sidewalk, and it is treated like Fetch's personal sidewalk. I personally I emailed Toby today, just before coming to this meeting. I drove by and guess what? Tables and chairs were out and it was within 3 feet. So this is just today after Toby just checked it today. I've stated, why can't they just have one row of tables? Why do they have to have two? But again, how come Fetch gets to use city property, because that's city's property, it's not Fetch's property, but yet other businesses on Colby can't have tables out, can't have things like that out? Why is that fair for one business and not the other?
Anyone else? Hearing none, we need to go into a closed session. I need a motion.
Make a motion to go into closed session.
Second. Moved and seconded.